Hello, welcome back to the breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you're watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I have a huge lineup of news that I'd like to share with all of you today. So today's date is April 25th, 2025, and it's Friday. Hope you guys are ready for your weekend. I can't believe how fast this week went. It's insane. I can't believe we're already at the weekend, but hope you're ready for it. Let's go ahead and jump into the news, guys. We have very, very big news coming out from Moscow once again today. Take a look at your screen here. Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, killed in a car bomb blast in Moscow, Russia today. A senior Russian general has died in a car bombing in the Russian city of Balashika on Friday, just before Special Envoy Steve Witkoff met with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Yeah, so we know that Steve Witkoff has arrived in Moscow. I think he got there yesterday from Paris on a flight over there and did meet with Vladimir Putin today. I've got video footage of them shaking hands today. And just before they met, we had this car bombing happening inside of Moscow with this Russian general. Okay, so once again, another Russian general being taken out, and most likely this was Ukraine's intelligence service that carried out this strike on this general here. So from what we understand, it was an IED explosive that was planted inside of a car nearby. He was walking out of his apartment building and it was detonated and he was blown several meters away. There are some crazy photos coming out online. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show it to you guys here. It's too graphic, but I do have some videos coming out of the explosion taking place. So we'll talk about that. Very big news today, as just a few months back, we had reports that another Russian general was killed in Moscow as well. So more info on that in just a moment, and also some reports today that Reuters has published the full text of Trump's peace plan. Okay, so we're actually going to go over that entire list of all the demands from the U.S. talking about this war, trying to end this. We'll talk about the Russian position and Ukraine's position on what will have to be agreed on to get this war ended here very soon. And also, Ukraine is demanding some amendments to that as well. Okay, so let's talk about all that as we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump on over here to X now with the informant. A car bomb detonated in Balashika, a city in the Moscow region, claiming the life of Major General Yaroslav Moskalik, the deputy chief of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. According to Russian media reports, the 59-year-old general was walking past a parked Volkswagen Golf when an improvised explosive device, or IED, hidden in the vehicle was remotely triggered, causing a powerful explosion that threw him several meters and resulted in his death. The incident, which occurred around 10:40 a.m. local time, is being investigated by the Russian Investigative Committee, with forensic experts and law enforcement agencies deployed to the scene. Russian media outlets, including MASH and Baza, suggest the attack was a targeted assassination, with the bomb detonated as Moskalik, a resident of the area, passed by. No official confirmation has been released regarding the perpetrators, though some unverified reports on X speculative involvement by Ukraine's military intelligence, citing similar high-profile attacks in Moscow since the onset of the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022. The timing of the attack coincides with reported diplomatic efforts as U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Moscow for talks with President Vladimir Putin on ending the ongoing war in Ukraine, adding a layer of geopolitical tension to the incident. So yeah, I'm sure that's definitely going to add some tension to what's going on right now inside of this war. We do have a post to share with you guys right after this one, talking about potentially it was Ukraine that carried out this strike, and also the Russian Foreign Ministry calling this a terrorist attack today. So let's go ahead and start off with this first video here and see what happens. Not much sound here in this video, but you're going to see an explosion just right there on a car parked right behind this white one. And it looks like somebody is walking right here just prior to the explosion. Can't really tell if that's him, but I believe it possibly was because we did see some pictures coming out today as well on X showing him kind of laying not too far away from the door. And unfortunately, I can't show it to you guys again here on YouTube, but this is allegedly him walking right there right before this explosion took place. So somebody was actually recording this event right before it happened. We got another video coming up. Okay, so this was after the initial explosion took place. We can see this car completely engulfed in flames. So again, from what we understand, an IED was placed inside of it. I believe there was a gas cylinder also next to the IED, which forced the explosion to be much larger to inflict major damage onto this Russian general and resulting in his death. Okay, so we've got another video coming up as well.
Кошмар. Это у нас во дворе горит. Так, чья машина это?
All right, so another angle of this car on fire here as we had this explosion taking place. So I believe he was walking out somewhere from this area over here towards this car when it exploded. It blasted him back towards the door that he came out of. And this is actually something we have seen from Ukraine before. The last Russian general that I reported to you guys in Moscow also being eliminated was in the same fashion. Though last time it was actually a scooter. It was some sort of electric scooter with explosives attached inside of it, inside of like the post that holds up the handlebars in the front of the scooter. And that's the last explosion that we had that killed another Russian general. And that scooter was planted right outside of a door as he was coming out of it. It was detonated and killed him before. Now we've got another Russian general here. So this is that photo of him that we had for you guys on the waiting screen, showing this Russian general here. So his name is Lieutenant General or Major General Yaroslav Moskalik. Okay, so that is him right there in the photo. Let's move on to some other updates here from Bandera Fella. One less Russian general, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, deputy head of Russia's General Staff Ops Command, was eliminated outside his home in Balashika. According to Russian media, the man behind the blast was Ukrainian-born Ignat Kuzin, who moved in next door, and vanished to Turkey days before detonation. No civilian casualties, just one war criminal erased with precision. Textbook act of patriotic vengeance. Okay, so this allegedly could be the photo of the man who maybe carried out this attack, but from what we understand, looks like he may have left to Turkey a few days before. So did somebody else detonate this, or was there a camera set up nearby and he detonated from far away? Don't really know all those details yet. Maybe we'll get some information here soon, but a lot of indication that this was probably Ukraine that carried this out, their intelligence service. So insane news today. Take a look at this one as well from Special Curson Cat. Car explosion in Bryansk. Leading Russian designer of Krasuka electronic warfare systems killed. In Bryansk, Russia, the car of Russia designer Evgeny Rydikov exploded. Rydikov, a key figure in the development of modern Russian electronic warfare, or EW systems, was the head of the design bureau at the Bryansk electromechanical plant. The plant is renowned for its work on creating electronic warfare and electronic reconnaissance systems, including the Krasuka series, used by the Russian army. The explosion took place during the night of April 17th to the 18th, but the results became known only now. Rydikov's car detonated when he and his colleague entered it. It is believed that the second victim, who also perished in the blast, may have either been the deputy head of the design bureau or Rydikov's assistant. Rydikov was heavily involved in the development of crucial electronic warfare systems, such as the Krasuka, which is designed to be disrupting radars and communication systems. This is a picture of him right here in one of the radar systems that he was involved in developing. So allegedly, just not too long ago, about a week ago, on the April 17th to the 18th, or that night of the 17th, we had another car being hit with an explosion as well. So it looks like Ukraine is targeting lots of Russian officials involved in this war efforts right now, and just crazy news that yet again another general has been taken out. I mean, Ukraine's been doing this quite a bit recently. Lots of even regional officers inside the military as well. Like in eastern Ukraine, southern Ukraine, sometimes even Crimea, we have these explosions taking place. So isn't that insane that Ukraine is able to carry out these strikes inside of Russian territory? I mean, it's absolutely insane news today. So just want to share that with you guys also. Now for Polymarket Intel, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova called the elimination of Russian Deputy Intelligence Chief Moskalik a terrorist attack. Okay, so allegedly that's what the Russian Foreign Ministry was stating today, that this was a terrorist attack. And was it from Ukraine? I'm not sure if they completely blamed Ukraine for it. They probably will. And will this create more tensions and make it harder to end this war? I think it's possible and likely. But we know ongoing peace negotiations are taking place right now. Now, from Anton Gerashenko, Reuters published the full text of Trump's peace plan, which was reportedly presented at a meeting in Paris by U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. The proposals are as follows: permanent ceasefire along the front line, U.S. de jure recognize Russian control of Crimea and de facto recognize other Russian territorial seizures in Ukraine. Ukraine will not seek to join NATO. Ukraine gains control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant through U.S. control administration. Ukraine regains territory in the Kharkiv region. Sanctions on Russia since 2014 will be removed. Unhindered passage for Ukrainian ships on Dnieper River, etc. Okay, so we know about a lot of these for the proposals on the Ukrainian side. Here's Ukraine's position. Ukraine will not recognize Crimea as well as other parts of its territory as Russian. Ukraine will not accept restrictions on its armed forces and defense industry or military aid from partners. Ukraine will not accept a veto on its participation in alliances and unions. So we know about a lot of these as well. Here's the official report from Reuters. Ukraine peace deal proposal set out by U.S. at talks in Paris. Okay, you can see the dates here, April 25th, 2025. So that was just being released today. So there's the details on the proposals for Ukraine's side. And let's go ahead and jump on over here to Nexta now. Ukraine demands peace plan not to be seen as capitulation. According to the Telegraph today, the Telegraph has learned that Ukraine has submitted 5 key amendments to the peace plan to the U.S. The main demand is not to recognize Crimea as Russian under any circumstances. The peace should be based on international law, not be seen as capitulation. It's essential to consider that China might attack Taiwan if aggression becomes the norm. Ukraine must be brought back to the center of peace negotiations. If Russia retains Crimea, it could pose a threat to other countries near the Black Sea, such as Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria. Russia should not decide how many soldiers or weapons Ukraine will have after the peace agreement. Additionally, Ukraine emphasized the importance of clear security guarantees in the document sent to the U.S. Okay, so here's a piece of the report today from the Telegraph. It says points 1 and 2 focus on framing any peace deal as rooted in the international law, not capitulation, with a specific warning over China's possible invasion of Taiwan. They also stress the importance of clear security guarantees at the price for any prospective peace agreement that would see Ukraine cede territory to Russia, even on temporary basis. Point 3 is an attempt to wrestle back control of the negotiations from Mr. Trump and put Ukraine back at the heart of the peace process. Fourth point serves as a warning to both the U.S. and NATO that allowing Russia's control over Crimea enables it to threaten not only attacks on Ukraine, but also Black Sea allies Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria. The fifth and final point makes it clear that Russia should not be allowed to use the deal to limit the size of Ukraine's armed forces and defense industrial base. Okay, so lots of major talking points. And again, we've kind of been discussing many of these already. We've been talking about security guarantees. We've been talking about Crimea, that Ukraine doesn't want to give it up. Just a lot of these points we already know about, but these are some of the major ones that Ukraine wants to make amendments on in terms of this peace deal that the U.S. is proposing. Now for Max 24, so far no one has endorsed the American proposals, according to The Economist. Zelensky said his country will never formally recognize Russia's seizure of Crimea, prompting Trump to call him inflammatory. But Russia has not yet accepted the plan either. Witkoff will visit Moscow soon to try and get Mr. Putin's assent to it. European countries have been publicly silent, but will not want to undercut Ukraine. Okay, so here's the report here. America is selling a Ukraine peace plan. No one is buying it yet. If they can't seal the deal, Donald Trump's team may walk away. Okay, so we're hearing maybe as soon as 2 weeks if we don't get any movement on this peace plan from either side, whether it be Ukraine or Russia or both that don't accept it. The U.S. administration will walk away from negotiations most likely, but we've also been hearing potentially could the U.S. withhold aid for Ukraine or any further aid for Ukraine, and also intelligence could be likely. We'll have to see how things play out here, but Donald Trump's been coming out a lot lately and stating that things are moving along well, but we've been hearing that for months now and nothing's really happened. So we'll really have to wait for actual evidence to see if this peace plan is moving. Now for Max 24, documents show differences over U.S. peace drive for Ukraine, according to Reuters today. Witkoff proposals called for a de jure U.S. recognition of Russia's control over Crimea, plus de facto recognition of Russia's hold-on areas of southern and eastern Ukraine that Moscow's forces control. European and Ukrainian document defers detailed discussion about territory until a ceasefire is concluded, with no mention in the document of recognizing Russian control over any Ukrainian territory. So Makes you wonder if the U.S. is trying to pull a fast one here. Is there some discrepancies in some of the documents that Europe and Ukraine are receiving versus what the U.S. has, and maybe they're trying to get Ukraine and Europe to agree to something that has nothing to do with the original document? I couldn't see how that would be a legal thing that would happen, but apparently, Reuters is reporting this today. Okay, documents show differences over U.S. peace drive for Ukraine. So these documents have different information depending on who's holding onto the document. Okay, so that's not some good news there. Now, from Max 24, Ukraine will have to make some compromises in negotiations with Russia. Each side must make compromises to achieve peace, says Polish President Andrzej Duda. Now, this is interesting that Duda's coming out and saying this because we know Poland heavily stands with Ukraine. So why all of a sudden is the Polish president coming out now, and this is the first time I've ever seen him speak like this, stating that Ukraine needs to make some compromises. Now, maybe in some ways, should both sides make some compromises? Maybe. And obviously, we know Ukraine's red lines there. There's certain things they will not give up. But at the same time, Russia did attack Ukraine. So much of this territory that was Ukraine's territory, it makes sense why they wouldn't give it up because that's their sovereign territory. So, interesting news coming out from Duda today, just stating this. So, you guys let me know what you think about that because the first time I've ever seen Poland's stance change on Ukraine. They're usually 100% pro Ukraine. So, now from Max 24, the annual report of the NATO Secretary General does not contain any wording that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance in the future and that its path to NATO is irreversible. The latest report differs sharply from the 2023 reports, where the allies stated that Ukraine's future is in NATO and that the alliance will support Ukraine on its path to future membership. The 2024 report only states that the allies are actively cooperating with 16 partner countries on a bilateral basis. Among these partners, NATO has created special structures for relations with Ukraine and Georgia. All right, so the Secretary General's annual report, okay, that would be Mark Rutte for NATO. Apparently, this new report has nothing to do with talking about Ukraine's irreversible path into NATO. When, just last year we were hearing so much about that just prior to Trump getting in. Now that Trump is in office and we know that Trump is not going to allow Ukraine into NATO, he's been saying it so many times that Ukraine will never get into NATO. Looks like the Secretary General is rolling with that same narrative from Donald Trump and basically stating that Ukraine is most likely not getting into NATO. So it's not looking good for Ukraine's accession to NATO. Now from Ukraine frontline Kharkiv at night, where is the stop from Trump? So this was Kharkiv last night, and yesterday we heard from U.S. President Donald Trump. He was commenting on the strikes in Kiev, in the capital of Ukraine, yesterday, pretty much saying that Vladimir Putin needs to stop these attacks, okay? And then immediately after, hours later into the evening over here in Ukraine, they're once again being attacked by drones. Were these missiles? Could be maybe missiles as well, but most likely drones. We had explosions over here taking place in Kharkiv, so people are kind of mocking Trump with the whole stop statement that he mentioned yesterday. Here's another report from Serhiy Sternenko. This is what Putin's response to Trump's call, Vladimir stop, looks like. Pavlograd now. Okay, and I think there was actually a clip that was rolling around on X yesterday where a reporter asked Trump, do you think Putin will actually listen to you and when you told him to stop? And he said, yes, I think he will. Well, this is a result of what's already happening just hours later after he issued that statement to Vladimir Putin to stop. I mean, look at the attacks over here. We had an apartment building being directly hit here. Here's more information now. Bliskovka, number of casualties in Ukrainian city of Pavlograd after Russian attack increased to 15. Dnipropetrovsk Regional Military Administration, among them are 3 children, teenagers aged 15 and 17, and a 6-year-old boy. 5 victims remain in the hospital, 3 of them in serious condition. I did hear some reports that 3 people had died here. Some of the reports are talking about that. It looks like Bliskovka is not reporting that. So there's very big possibility some people died in these attacks, which is very sad to have to hear that. These were just innocent people living in their apartments, but most likely drone attacks taking place over here in the Ukrainian city of Pavlograd in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Dnipropetrovsk has been hit and attacked a lot recently from the Russians. So once again, it looks like Vladimir Putin is ignoring the calls for Donald Trump to tell Russia to stop these attacks on Ukraine, right? Now, some interesting information today is I was not able to find how many drones were entering into Russia, so maybe it was a small amount of drones attacking Ukraine last night. Or, excuse me, Ukraine, not Russia, if I said Russia. Now from Savchenko, Vladimir, The son of deputy head of the American CIA fought on the side of Russia against Ukraine, who signed a contract with the Russian army and later died, according to Military. This is 21-year-old Michael Gloss, the son of the CIA's deputy director for digital innovation, Julianne Galina Gloss, and Iraq war veteran Larry Gloss. So isn't that crazy, guys? So the son of the CIA's deputy director for digital innovation, okay, Julianne Galina Gloss, her son was allegedly fighting on behalf of the Russians. And apparently, he has passed away in this war. He was probably killed in combat somewhere inside of Ukraine or maybe in the Kursk region. Who knows? And these were some photos of him apparently coming out probably on social media. So crazy news to think that a CIA director has a son that was fighting inside the war of Ukraine, fighting for the Russians. So crazy news coming out today. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm sure that's going to receive some backlash there. Now for more translated, Russian field ammo depot spectacularly self-demilitarizes with brilliant explosions. Russian troops can only watch and dodge their own ammo's blasts. Likely Kharkiv direction. Okay, so we have a video coming out from the Russian side, somewhere along the front line, maybe inside of Russia, maybe inside of Ukraine. We don't really know exactly where it took place, but some people are speculating Kharkiv region. And we had a destruction of Russian ammo supplies over here. So I wanted to show you guys this video. It is very loud, though. Just get your ears ready. I tried to turn it down a little bit so it's not too loud, but there's so many explosions going off, so it is going to be loud. Take a look at this. Okay, so after watching this, I was wondering how maybe this ammo depot or ammo dump here got destroyed. I was thinking maybe it was a Ukrainian FPV drone that crashed into it and blew it up. But along with hearing what sounds like small arms ammunition, we see a lot of major explosions as well. So those might be like grenades or something. You guys can let me know what you think those are. But looks like a lot of ammo being destroyed over here on the front line on the Russian side. Now moving on to Kiev Post, Ukraine and U.S. will not sign a mineral resources development agreement this week, despite progress in negotiations, Ukraine's finance minister Marchenko said, as reported by Reuters. Here's a report here. Ukraine's Marchenko says working to seal U.S. minerals pact as fast as we can. Okay, this report was actually breaking yesterday, but I wanted to share this with you guys because we didn't talk about this yesterday. Looks like there's not going to be any kind of movement on a mineral resources deal between the U.S. and Ukraine this week. This has been delayed for several weeks now, but looks like there will be no movement on this. We shouldn't expect to hear any outcomes coming out from the minerals deal between Ukraine and the U.S. this week. Now from Max 24, the war in Ukraine will end this year. This is the forecast in the April IMF report. Currently, the population of Ukraine is 32.9 million people. It is expected that after the war ends, some refugees will return, and in 2026, 33.4 million, and by 2030, 33.9 million. Okay, so this report allegedly stating that they're expecting that this war is going to come to an end sometime very soon, and things will probably improve inside of Ukraine. And they're also indicating that a lot of refugees are going to be returning back to Ukraine that probably fled towards the beginning of the war, and that will increase their population as time goes on. So there's so much talk about whether this war is going to end. Some people think it will. Some people think that it's not going to. I really don't know what's going to happen here. We'll have to see how things play out in these negotiations. But another sign that maybe this war could possibly end this year. Now for more translated, over 50% of Russia's 51st Grau arsenal in Vladimir Oblast obliterated per Ukraine's CPD. Satellite images from MT Anderson show massive damage to one of the RF's largest ammo depots. Okay, so here's some pictures coming out showing the areas that were heavily blown up. Okay, it was kind of the central area here of this 51st Grau arsenal. We talked about this a few days ago when it blew up. So here's like a fire map that kind of shows the different bunkers that were allegedly destroyed after we had information coming out yesterday showing satellite imagery of this facility, and many of these bunkers were destroyed. So some people are stating that approximately 50%, if not more, of the ammunition detonated over here and was completely destroyed. So pretty insane news there. Now, from the Ukrainian Review, search and rescue operations completed in Kiev after a Russian attack. 12 people died, another 87 were injured. April 25th has been declared a day of mourning in Kiev. Okay, these were pictures coming out from yesterday in Kiev. It looks like somebody was being rescued, potentially somebody who passed away here, buried under rubble. And 12 people died in total. Okay, these were the official numbers coming out. 87 injured after the attacks in Kiev today. Very horrible news there. Now from Bliskovka, the North Korean missile that killed 12 people in Kiev had at least 116 foreign components, Zelensky said. Most of them were manufactured by American companies. The lack of pressure on Russia allows them to import such missiles and other weapons and use them here in Europe, the president said. Okay, this was the video coming out from Kiev yesterday also. And we were hearing reports yesterday, just after these attacks were taking place, that allegedly some of the missiles that were striking inside of Kiev were actually North Korean made. Okay, these were North Korean missiles, KN-23 ballistic missiles, and one of them actually struck an apartment building over there in Kiev yesterday, and just one single strike killed 10 people. So very sad, guys. North Korean missiles entering into Ukraine that are being fired inside of Russia, and we're having people losing their lives in Ukraine, so very sad. Now for Military News UA, reporter, Mr. President, in 2018, your Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for an end to Russia's occupation of Crimea. Why has your administration changed its stance on territorial concessions for Crimea? Here's Trump's response on that. Okay, we talked about this yesterday. We did a whole report on Crimea, the Crimea Declaration from Mike Pompeo under the Trump administration in 2018. Their whole stance back then was against Russia's occupation of Crimea. Now it's the complete opposite. Now they're trying to end this war. Here's the response from Trump. It's about 2 minutes here. Take a look.
Mr. President, in 2018, your former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for an end to Russian occupation of Crimea. Why has this administration changed its stance on territorial concessions for Crimea?
Well, the war started. It would have never started if I were president. This is a war that is horrible. All wars are horrible. This one is in particular bad. And I don't know that you can ever say there's going to be a winner to this, because so many lives have been lost, not only soldiers. I mean, a lot of lives have been lost. I think that we want to do one very simple thing. It would have never happened if I were president. Zero chance it was going to. And it didn't. You know, people say, how do you know that? Number one, it didn't happen. We never even discussed it. I would talk to Putin about it. It was the apple of his eye. You know, Ukraine was the apple of Putin's eye, but there was never even a thought that he'd go in. And I think he understood that I would not be happy if he did. And it was only when I got out, and you know, when you mention what happened to Ukraine years ago under President Obama and a vice president that was also president later, unfortunately for this country, what happened is large chunks of land were given up, and it was called Crimea, and that was a big thing. That was a big moment. But this isn't my war. This is Biden's war. This is a war that Biden was president when this war happened. But I'm trying to put out the fire, and I think we'll be successful. And if we do, we're going to save a lot of lives. Otherwise, and the Prime Minister had a statement. He said, this is just a point in time. We're very lucky because this is a point. And if this doesn't happen, this could go on for a long time.
Mr. President,
Okay, so we can see here that Trump clearly avoiding the conversation, not really answering why his administration previously, with Mike Pompeo being the former Secretary of State, they were completely, basically for Ukraine, and stating that they wouldn't even recognize Putin's invasion of Crimea. Then that whole Crimea Declaration came out. We talked about that yesterday. And now the Trump administration is basically saying, well, we're trying to end this war. We're trying to stop the killing. And this war would have never stopped if I was president. That was basically his response to that reporter's question. So I thought that was interesting today. You guys let me know what you think on that. Now from the Ukrainian Review, in Rome, Trump may hold separate meetings with Zelensky, Macron, and Starmer, according to La Repubblica. Ukraine proposes holding a summit in Rome. Chancellor Scholz is ready for bilateral meetings, but the Italian side doubts the feasibility due to complex logistics. Okay, so The report today that Zelensky is supposed to be in Rome, Macron and Starmer are going to be there also, and Trump is supposed to be there. There was video of him today leaving the White House, heading over to Rome. This is for the Pope and his funeral today, as he passed away just a few days ago after J.D. Vance had met with him just the previous day, I believe. And yeah, so we should be seeing some meetings taking place inside of Rome, since all these top leaders are going to be over there. Wait for more information on what comes out on some of those meetings. Now moving on to Max 24, we've got a video here of Steve Witkoff meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, this is the special envoy out of the Middle East that is negotiating on behalf of the U.S. with Russia. So this was them meeting today, and they were supposed to be talking about lots of different things. Still more talk about, trying to get some sort of peace deal move forward, but probably even some energy cooperation between the U.S. and Russia at some point in the future, probably trying to strike some more deals. Who really knows what came out from this? We probably won't hear much information, but we might get some here soon. But there was a report here today from the Ukrainian Review. According to the results of the negotiations between Putin and Witkoff, progress has been achieved today, says Dmitriev. So this was one of Putin's staff members in the Kremlin. So allegedly he stated this, that there was some progress that was made. So you guys can let me know what you think on that. Not really sure what type of progress would have been made, but allegedly there was some form of progress that moved forward. Now from Anton Gerashenko, Security Service of Ukraine arrested a vessel of the Russian Shadow Fleet that transported 5,000 tons of looted Ukrainian grain from temporarily occupied Crimea. Operation was carried out jointly with the Border Guard Service in the Black Sea area of Ukraine. In 2024, a bulk carrier was transporting wheat stolen from the occupied territories of southern Ukraine from the port of Sevastopol under the flag of an Asian country to cover up the crime. During a search of the vessel, documents, navigation equipment, and other evidence confirming the looting of Ukrainian agricultural products were found. The crew is detained and investigative actions are underway to establish all the circumstances and bring those responsible to justice. So we actually heard about this several weeks ago. I remember reporting to you guys that there was stolen grain that was being taken out of one of the ports over there inside of Ukraine. And allegedly, looks like Ukraine's security service had arrested this vessel and taken control of it, at least for right now. And this is part of Russia's Shadow Fleet. Okay, this is, again, these same tankers that keep sinking all over the place and spilling oil all over the beaches inside of Russia down near the Black Sea. Looks like Ukraine was able to locate one of these ships involved in stealing of grain and was able to detain the crew for investigation. So very big news today. Again, more talk about Russia's Shadow Fleet. Now, finally, our last update of the day from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of April 25th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Final update here, guys. Russia's losses as of April 25th, 1,170 troops, 3 AFVs, 151 vehicles and fuel tanks, 9 tanks, 72 artillery systems, 119 UAVs, 3 MLRS, 48 cruise missiles, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems. Okay, so about average numbers that we're seeing across the board here. Still that troop number right around 1,200 here. Vehicles and fuel tanks about average. Tank numbers, artillery systems, same numbers that we typically see, but this number right here, 48 cruise missiles, was due to that massive attack taking place yesterday in Kyiv, as we had upwards of almost 70 missiles attacking into Ukraine, and their capital of Kyiv was hit, probably being hit one of the hardest yesterday. So huge news coming out from this war today, guys, and this Russian general being eliminated today in Moscow. Let's see if Ukraine's general staff comes out and admits that this was them that did this. Maybe it was Ukraine's intelligence service, and I'm thinking highly likely that it was, just due to the nature and the style of the attack. We've seen this happening before. Just again, very insane that Ukraine is able to do this deep in the heart of Russia, inside of Moscow, okay? And Ukraine's been very successful in these kinds of attacks too, because we've been seeing them happening multiple times throughout the past. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's update though, guys. I want to thank you for hanging out to the end of this video. I understand it was a longer video today, so thank you very much. Hope you guys all have a good one today and enjoy your weekend. So let me know what you think about all these details down below. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.